All right, recording is now started, and I will welcome you to our OTL session featuring Angel King, and I will also welcome you to connect in any way that makes sense for you. And if you would like to disable your camera and disable your mic, please feel free to do that. If you'd like to type in the chat window any questions or thoughts, we also welcome that, and certainly appreciate our presenters' time this morning. Angel King is a licensed clinical social worker who works full-time at Veterans Affairs Medical Center and has over 20 years experience in social work and mental health, and has been an adjunct with us at EKU since 2007. And she's an EKU alumna and a first-generation college student, and enjoys engaging and encouraging those first-generation folks and other disadvantaged students to academic achievement and personal success. So thank you, Angel. I'm going to advance the slides as you indicate and take it away.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I think I know a lot of folks already in here, but I just wanted to say hello. I'm Angel. I'm an LCSW and a facilitator for the online social work program. And today we are going to talk about engaging online students. I know several of you have been teaching online probably for a long time, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. And I wanted to first kind of tell you the agenda for today. So thanks, Chris. So we're going to talk about why we want to engage students, why that's important, identify 3 strategies for engaging online students, and then think about maybe making one SMART goal for yourself before you leave so that you have something to think about to your own teaching. And that's going to be our agenda. So introductions first. I like to get to know people a little bit better. I know some of you guys already, but I don't really know that much about you personally. So about me, just some fun things about me. I like to dance and I like to act. And these are some things that I've done over the years. The one on the left is me and my daughter in a play. I was the Swedish chef's assistant and she was the Swedish chef. And then the one on the right is a play that I'm in right now. It's called Harvey, and some of you may be familiar with that play, but it's about a man who hallucinates a big white rabbit. It's from the 40s, so it's a play about mental health. And then on the bottom there is me tap dancing. So those are just some fun facts about me. So if you could just kind of introduce yourselves and let me know just a little bit about what you would like to kind of get out of the presentation. So what department you're in, how long you've been teaching online, or if you are, and then just something fun about you. If you want to introduce yourselves, if you don't, that's fine too.
Hi, my name is Kelly Ward. I am new to Eastern Kentucky, and I'm in the MSW online program.
I'm Erin Stevenson. I'm also in the social work program and teach kind of a blended both online and in-person classes. And I get to work with Angel on our social work research class starting in October. I'm looking forward to that.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, I'm Larry Breitenstein, and I'm teaching in the social work program. I'm not new to online teaching. I've been teaching for about 10 years, but I'm new to EKU's online program, and I am an EKU graduate.
I'm with the BSW program, and one of the things that I'm hoping to get out of it is I'm not teaching online right now, but even when even if we go back into some kind of hybrid, or if I go back to teaching online, that making sure students are staying engaged, that's something that I really struggled with. So I'm looking forward to getting advice about how to do that. The topic's really interesting to me.
Hello, I'm Casey Humphrey. I'm in the occupational science and occupational therapy department. I've been at EKU for about 5 years. I teach online in our post-professional doctorate program, and I teach online in our master's program. And I just am always looking for new ideas and suggestions about how to become a better online educator and keep students engaged and excited about the content.
Hi, folks. I'm Chris Daniel. I'm faculty PD manager, or the new Nadeem, as they are calling me right now. I've been at EKU 22 years and worked in IT for 15 of those years, and the rest of the time as an instructional designer, working primarily with graduate nursing, the psych nursing track, as well as the family nurse practitioner track. Kelsey Richardson also chimed in on text. Thank you for doing that, Kelsey. If you'd like to speak up, great. If not, just hold your peace and we'll move on to the next person.
Okay, I think that's everybody. The only thing with this view here, I can't really see everybody all at once, so it's kind of a little disorienting to me. I only see people when they pop up and they're talking. So I think we went through everybody. Nobody really told me any fun facts about themselves, though. Anybody want to chime in and say anything fun that they like to do, or anything interesting about themselves?
We're not feeling very fun right now.
Not feeling very personal or fun right now. Okay, that's fine. And the only reason not really the only reason, but the thing that I say about that is that one of the things that I like to do, and one of the things that we do oftentimes in the social work courses, is that when we do our beginning introduction discussion boards, we often ask our students to introduce themselves, tell us something fun about them, or tell us something that they like to do, or their favorite movie, or something like that. So we're trying to get to know students in a more personal way. We're still being very professional, but we're trying to get to know what's going on in the students' lives. And that's one way to kind of connect and engage students. So it's not just being very didactic and professional and we don't really care what's going on with you. Let's just get on with this material. We want to kind of break the ice and get to know people so that when we're working with material, they understand, hey, we're human too. We actually do things outside of teaching and outside of talking about this formal information. So, that's kind of an experiential way to kind of talk about it. So if you will advance that slide there. Okay, so online classes. Does this look familiar to anybody? Your expectation is that your student is on the other end, they've got their pencils and their paper and they're sitting up straight and they're just taking in all this information. They're so excited about it. But what's probably happening really is they're laying down, they're eating snacks, and they're drinking coffee, and they're petting their cat, and they're maybe half asleep. And sometimes we're doing that too, when we're grading, or we're doing other things too. And we're competing oftentimes with their attention to with TikTok, with Netflix, with all these other obligations that they have. Students are overwhelmed with things that they have to do, with work, with kids, with other obligations that they have. So that is the reality. Oftentimes our students are taking these online classes because they have so much going on in their lives. That's really the only way they can fit this stuff in. They think, oh, well, I can fit this in if I don't have to be somewhere at a certain time. So I'm going to take these online classes. So the reality is we have to compete with that. And how can we do that? Does that sound familiar to everybody? Does that seem to happen in your classes? Okay. Anybody want to speak to that? Any comments about the frustrations that you feel with students and their things that they have going on in their lives.
I've been trying to find ways for them to tell me privately what's going on and I'm surprised at how many will say, I didn't hear a thing you said today. I'm so sorry. It's been a horrible week. I can't think. And they'll just tell you. They don't want to say it in front of all their peers, but finding to let them connect with you. And then I can say, well, let me send you this material. Can you look at this? Let me know if you have questions, and try to keep them pulled in. But it's hard. It is really hard.
Right, exactly. Okay, next slide. Yes.
Angel, I guess I have more of a philosophical, I mean, it's really more of a philosophical question. It's like, at some point, I just wonder, will we start getting to the point where we say enough is enough? Like, I think that it's really helped us to become more efficient with our time, saying we have a lot to do, but at one point, it seems like we should be saying enough is enough, and, and like prioritizing, and just saying, okay, this is really high on my list. I want to put this other to the side, and I want to focus on school, or I want to not do this other thing, and I want to put this, so I understand the idea, the concept of I have a lot to do and I have to juggle, but at the same time, it's like, well, but this is our priority. And so you have to put these other things at the side and really focus on this other thing because it's a priority. So,
And
I agree with that, but so.
And I actually do that where I talk to students about, is right now the time to be in college, and what you can't put off certain things like family obligations or children, those kind of things. You can put off whether you take courses this semester. So I do think that is an important discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, I've only been doing the facilitating online, so I have a lot of these discussions on email, and sometimes I'll have students call me too, and you're almost being a mini therapist sometimes. But I think that is those conversations that you have. Is this the right time? Your husband has cancer. Yeah, you do need to be there for him. He's going through chemo. You have to take him to chemo. Maybe you do have to sit out 2 semesters to be able to do those kinds of things. So helping students prioritize sometimes is a piece of what you have to do. I think Kelsey had some information here in the chat. I don't know if she wants to come in and talk about that as a student. I can just read what she says here. Speaking from a student standpoint, I truly see this. Most of the time, I make myself sit at my desk when in online class to keep from losing concentration. However, I know several individuals who have taken online classes due to the fact that they can do just what they want. Okay, so she has a perspective as a student, so I'm glad she's here in this conversation with us. It's great. So it is a big juggling act for sure. What are your priorities and how do you juggle all those priorities? Okay, so why engage students? Why should we even bother? It's kind of like Anne was playing the devil's advocate here almost and saying, well, we got to get this material out. Sure, you got a lot of stuff going on, but we got to do this. I mean, I know she wasn't saying that exactly, but why do we take into consideration all these other things that students have going on? When I was thinking about this presentation, I was trying to think about, well, what is my teaching philosophy and what's my philosophy in general, and how does it relate to all of the things that I've been learning in my philosophy and mental health and being a therapist and that kind of thing. And some of the things that I came up with and some of the philosophers and psychologists and some of those things that I came up with have a lot to do with Carl Rogers and the person-centered philosophy. So when I was looking at that, I was thinking about, well, what is my teaching philosophy? And engaging students and trying to be on that personal level and developing a relationship with them is, where I see myself in trying to work with students.
Hey.
So, yeah. Somebody have something? Again, sorry, I can't see anybody. Guess not. So the power of relationship. So one of the definitions of engaging, to interest someone in something and keep them thinking about it. So when we're talking about engaging, I think that's a really good definition. So I think that's what we're doing when we're teaching people. We want them to be interested in what we have to say and to think about it later on. It's not just, oh, they were talking about empowerment and they were talking about systems theory and then they just forget it. So we want them to keep thinking about it. And, just kind of borrowing from Carl Rogers and thinking about having a relationship with a student, not a personal relationship, but a professional one, but understanding where they're coming from so that when we give these assignments and we give this information, that we understand where they're coming from, they understand where we're coming from too. So if anyone would want to comment about what, why do you teach? What do you think is your mission and your philosophy on teaching?
I think that's an important question that I tend to try to always go back to when I'm teaching online, because I became an educator because I have a passion for lifelong learning and I want my students to be great occupational therapists, and I want them to have a passion and know how to advocate for the clients that they're going to see when they go out. But I think that it's so easy to lose that when you're like, I have to know this content. And so I find myself having to take a step back and being like, do they really need that extra assignment? Or can I spend more time doing something that is more meaningful, that kind of gets to the root of being a passionate clinician versus regurgitating content? And how can I be flexible with what they have to know? And what would be good if they knew, in my opinion. There's a balance between that. And so I always have to be constantly trying to navigate that struggle about how much do I focus on content and how I focus more on like relationship rich, just building a love for learning and student engagement.
Right. Exactly. That was beautifully said. How much do we focus on getting out that material, and how much can we focus on building a relationship and encouraging our students to be the best, whatever it is that we're teaching, whether it's social work or occupational therapist or whatever the case may be. It's a very delicate balance oftentimes. Can we get to the next slide, please? Okay, so, and I was thinking about Martin Buber. I read a lot of him, a long time ago, but it was that relationship that I go back to, the I-thou dialectic. So here's a good quote that I really liked. Through the I-thou dialectic, an attitude of communion and relatedness between self and expanded others is fostered in the student. The I-thou relationship toward the other or the world is characterized by an immediate, spontaneous, and humble attitude. Hence, the student is educated to become a person with authentic social consciousness. So I think that's probably what most of us are trying to strive toward, helping the student be very conscious of being that best professional that they're working toward. And it's in that relationship that we're able to do that. Sure, we want to get out the right content, and that's a good piece of it. But it's in that relationship. If they trust you and respect you in that relationship, they're going to get the content too.
Angel, do you know how Martin Buber started upon his I-thou philosophy?
I don't think I do. No.
I know how.
Okay, tell me.
It's a very quick story. A
Yes,
student
please.
came to his door. He was working late one night. A student came to his door and knocked upon it and wanted his consult. He was too busy,
Ah.
and he rushed him off. And that student committed suicide.
Oh no. No, I did not know that.
No, and that was right before. And then he realized the error of his ways, and he just obviously did some soul searching, and just started to endeavor to commit the rest of his life to this focus on relationship and I thou and cultivating basically this life-changing philosophy.
Wow, Anne, I'm so glad you told me that. I didn't know that. I mean, I read that book, and I've read other essays from him and all of that, but I didn't know that background. I don't know how I missed that background. That's amazing. Wow. I'm gonna read some more about his history. And there's even in kind of getting ready for this discussion, I read a conversation between Buber and Carl Rogers, which is very interesting because they were talking about how their philosophies kind of align together. But I never had read about that. Can we go to the next slide, please, Tim? So I just kind of gathered together some things that I do that I feel like help engage students. Again, I'm going from a perspective of online facilitating. I mostly do asynchronous teaching. So I know, you guys are in person. Some of you guys do in-person teaching. Some of you guys do synchronous teaching. I do at the VA do some groups that are synchronous. So I know, I know what that's like too, to be with students that are with you on a video format. So some of these things will work for that too. So I like acronyms. If you work for the federal government, you know that they do a lot of acronyms, but I also like DBT, which is another theoretical therapy model that uses a lot of acronyms, but I think it helps us remember things. So I put these together myself. So these are some acronyms that might help you think about some strategies here. So we've got TIP. So take it personally. So I know you guys may be familiar with the tip to not take it personally, but I say take it personally. So try to get to know your students. So some ideas for that, again, is those discussion boards where students are introducing yourselves. And I like to comment to each of my students in my groups personally. So if they wrote a discussion board and they're saying, I like to watch horror movies and go hiking, then I will comment back to each student and say, oh, well, I really don't like horror movies. They kind of scare me, but oh, I love to go hiking too. Where do you go hiking? So I will comment back to each student in my group. And then I'll say something, about myself. So when I say personally, I'm not saying, send them pictures of all your kids and tell them your address. I'm just saying, let them know a little bit about yourself so that you know that they are human and you are human too. Be fair. So fair to me in this sense, you're going to be frequent in your comments, in your feedback, in accommodating when you can be. That doesn't mean you're bending the rules or letting them get by with things, but you're taking into consideration what's going on with them. You're interested in what's going on with their lives. You're interested in helping them to grow as a student, and you're reliable. So you're, they know what to expect from you. And then keeping it fun, friendly and fun. I send a lot of memes. If you'll see right there, I've got a meme that I created myself. When there was a time when they had like maybe 3 or 4 assignments that they had to send. And I showed them a picture of me grading, and then after all the grading, so they had they knew that they had a lot of assignments and they probably felt the same way after they did all these assignments. So we could relate here. And then unusual. By unusual, I mean like I'll send them, unusual memes, or I might send them a message that will kind of bring their attention to something. If they are not, if their log is not what it needs to be, I might bring their attention to it by saying, hey, if you don't send this back to me within a day with these things change, it's going to have to be a U. And if you, just reminding them, if you have 2 U's, that's going to be an F. You're going to fail that, just to remind them that these are things that have to be done, but no threats. So those are the other things that I want to take into consideration. So those are just the kind of 3 strategies for engaging students. Let's see. Okay. So SMART goals. Everybody's probably familiar with SMART goals. How do you make a SMART goal? Make it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and it's time limited. So here's an example that I have for myself. I'm going to send a personalized email to my 16 students in my group by the end of next week, which would be Sunday. And then in the email, so here's my relevance, is I'm going to ask how my student is doing in the course and if they're struggling with any material. So I'm going to point out one positive that I noticed about their work for the week too. So you want to be specific. What am I going to do? And I'm going to be able to measure it because it's an email. We all know what emails look like, and somebody else can look at it if they needed to. And then attainable. Can I do this? Is this something that I can do? Yes, I can send emails. Is it relevant? It is relevant to the situation. That will help engage the student because they'll know, hey, I care about this person. I want to know what's going on with them in the course. And then is it time limited? Yes, I will do it by Sunday. So I feel like this is a good way to keep me on track. If I think of, one thing that I think will help me to be more involved in my students, and then doing it soon so that will encourage me to get more involved in the students. So in thinking about some of those things, what are some things that you guys do? I think it's good when we all share some ideas, because I know you guys probably have great ideas too about what you think has helped you to engage your students. Anybody have any ideas to share?
I try to use PowerPoints and videos that are going to attract their attention. So colorful, short, and then ask questions after that.
I like encouraging what I call debriefs, like a post-assignment debrief. A lot of times people will do surveys and other kinds of things to figure out student feedback along the way. But I'm taking to implementing Flipgrid. So after a major assignment, I just not required, but I encourage the students to get on Flipgrid and give me a debrief about what worked for this assignment, what could have gone better, what are some observations that they took away as they were doing in the assignment, and how do they think that kind of is going to reflect on their practice, after they get done with the course or done with the program.
Chris, if you want to take that slideshow down, I can see everybody again. Anybody have other things that they've tried or engaging points that they've tried that didn't work out so well? I feel like I try, sometimes I'll have a group of students that do not respond very well to email. Like I will send them emails and like, I've sent you emails and you are not responding well to these emails.
I did finally learn that the announcements, because I'll preset all the announcements on my Blackboard page. So if I forget to send something, it'll pop up anyway and remind them test is due, whatever. But no, until this year, that those announcements don't get emailed to them automatically. They have to go log in, pull up the course and look at the announcements. So when I realized that if there's really important things that they really need to get, they need to know, and I want them to get it, I gotta check that box to tell it to send the announcement, which means you have to go in and do it that day usually, but I've had better response from that. So.
Yeah. And so then that's when, like when I don't get students to respond to the emails, like the group emails, especially when it has to do with a grade or somebody not doing well on a log, that's when I might take some unusual kind of techniques, like I'm saying, in terms of, hey, you got a U here. So I might put a U in their grade book. It might be a temporary one. I might, be willing to change it if they revise it, and that kind of brings their attention to something. So it may not be a permanent U or a bad grade, but it does bring their attention to it. And it's like, oh, I just noticed there's a U on my grade book. And I've been sending them an email for 3 days about it. And then will bring their attention to it. Like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that's what that was about. So sometimes that will get their attention when nothing else seems to. Because I know, just looking at my own email, there's like tons of spam and people sending you stuff all the time. It's hard to dig out what's really important. What do you guys think will be something that you want to do differently? Is there anything that you feel like you need to do differently to engage students? Something that you've been thinking about, if I did more of this, maybe I could get students to respond better or to.
I don't know if I have an idea of how to make it better, but virtual office hours, no one ever shows up. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I've really, but then you'll get a lot of questions, so that they probably needed to come to office hours. So I've been trying to think about ways, and actually right before the pandemic, I tried something different where I said, instead of saying, come to my office hours if you had questions, I said, I'm going to be available from this time to this time to answer any questions about this particular assignment. And people showed up like that they needed like an invitation to talk about that specific assignment. I'm like, we can talk about this anytime.
Yeah.
But that kind of worked. And then the pandemic happened. And so I haven't really followed through with that. But I guess a wish is, I don't know how to fix it, is I wish that they would pop into office hours more, because I think that's the opportunity to develop more of that one-on-one, like mentorship, relationship. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that too, where I offered a Zoom office hours, and I tried to do it even like late at night, where I thought Sunday at 9 o'clock, they will want to do that. And I've had maybe one or two that take advantage of it. It seemed to be, like you said, when it was an assignment, a big assignment that was due, but it was only a couple. And it was never, 2 at a time. I was hoping, maybe it'll be 2 or 3 at a time, and they can all kind of talk together too with me. And it was just like one, and then we would talk for a few minutes, and then another one came in later on. So yeah, I've never been able to solve that problem either, where we could all get a few together and talk about an assignment together. Anybody else had that, where you've offered some virtual office hours and you've actually gotten some students to take the bait on that?
I'd just like to offer one potential solution to Casey on the feedback piece. We have available in IDC and eCampus a tool called Blue Pulse. Now there's some overhead to operating it. Like it's another application that you have to kind of learn. You know, it's always like one more thing. That's the thing I'm reticent with faculty, because how many one more things do we want you guys to have to learn or, or know or do? There's too much. But this tool it does two things. It allows an installable smartphone application where students can bring up survey questions that you pose to them, and they can respond anonymously, and you can communicate with that student anonymously. Now, there could be some potential for problems or abuse or whatever, but if say you ask a question, simple question, how are things going? And a frowny face, Likert, we call them smile sheets around here, but a Likert scale, frowny face to a smiley face. And then a comment, that student could comment on something. You could get that feedback and communicate anonymously with that student. And you might be able to coax them in for some assistance. I'm going to preview. We've had it a while, but I'm going to preview that probably before the end of the term or first thing next term. If you're interested in that, please let us know. Sorry to hijack you, April. Angel. I just wanted to bring that in.
What's
That's
it
great,
called
yeah.
again? Loopholes?
Blue Pulse. We have it right. Blue Pulse, like taking pulse that's blue. And it's integrated with some of our metrics applications that we have kind of behind the scenes. But I'm glad to show that to you sometime, or look for an announcement about it. And we're going to try to pump that up as we go along and just see what the interest level is.
Yeah. Pam brought up a good point on the chat. She said that she finds a lot of students that attend the virtual hours tend to be the students that are doing pretty well. They just need some validation. And the ones that are struggling seem to be the ones that don't kind of attend those sessions or reach out for help. So our struggle here probably is trying to get those students that probably need the help to engage more. I think, and then Anne agrees with that too. And I found that too. I embedded a Google form in one of my emails that was just like a feedback response, like, please fill out this little survey. It was just like 2 questions. I'm struggling in this course, and I forget what the other question was. And only 3 people responded to it. And all 3 people were people who said, no, I'm not struggling. So it wasn't anybody that responded that actually was having any trouble. It was the positive feedback people that responded to it, which I thought was interesting. My intuition was that the people that wanted to complain or that were having trouble would be the ones that responded, but it wasn't the case. So I guess it's the folks that are struggling that we need to figure out how do we engage them more. But I do get a lot, the people that email me, the students that email me back, the ones that I'm kind of not really after, but the ones that I keep emailing back and saying, hey, you didn't turn this in, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. They're the ones that do email me back with their stories of life situations. So they do get back to me with stuff that's going on with them. The excuses, so to speak, but I mean, they're valid situations for sure. But it is often after a deadline, after something has happened, without telling me ahead of time, hey, something is going on, can you give me an extension? But I'm trying to help students be a little more proactive in saying, let's plan for what you can plan for and work ahead when you can, because you have lots of stuff going on. Any other strategies that you guys know about, or that you think, oh, this has really, really worked for me in engaging students?
I have required individual meetings sometimes if I feel like they're struggling. And I mean, everybody gets to have a meeting, even the ones that are doing great, but just 15 minutes. And, instead of class that day, we're doing meetings all day or whatever. And that has seemed to be, particularly with classes that have really big projects that everybody's working towards, that has seemed to be helpful. I did more on my part, but it does seem to help them.
Yeah. What I've found with online teaching is that it seems like it takes a lot more energy for you as a professor, as a teacher, to engage the students, and you're doing a lot more one-on-one work to try to talk to each student individually. I mean, I think that's great that you have more facilitators. It's like this, you have teachers' aides or whatever. And I think that's because you have to have all of this time to do the feedback and the responses and that kind of thing. So it's a lot more energy for us as instructors to be able to do that. And it, I don't know, maybe it helps them to grow and learn individually. Maybe I'm more suited for being a therapist because that's a lot of what I do is one-on-one interactions, but it is like exhausting mentally. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta, send another email to this one student. So there's a lot of that one-on-one interaction. And that's why I feel like this philosophy, this therapeutic kind of philosophy applies, because there's a lot of that one-on-one interaction that you don't do as much when you're doing a lot of face-to-face group teaching.
Yeah, what Aaron was talking about, I've done the same thing. I call them check-ins, and you just get a review of project or whatever. But the other thing that does too, even if it's only for like less than 15 minutes, is it's like you finally getting to engage with the student a little bit. And it's difficult trying to track down those ones that they're the ones who don't reply to your emails, don't get back to you. But you got to kind of trap. You put it in there. We either check in or you lose points. And so they check in, and then you've got them. And then most of the time, you find one student who hasn't been communicating. They never come into office hours, and they're struggling. And so then you can, and then I always give them they don't hand out crystal balls to us faculty. We don't know you have these issues until you tell us about them. And we, now let's make a plan and let's deal with this. So, to me, that's been one of the most helpful things that I do. But I totally agree with Aaron. It's a lot of work. I mean, sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'll talk to you at 11 o'clock at night. I'm fine with that. We're social workers. We never sleep. So we can do that.
I think it depends on the class. Oh, sorry, Angel.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it also depends on the class you're teaching too. I'm teaching a self-care class, and so the content that we're talking about is a little different than what I'm typically talking with students about. So they're talking a lot about their personal experiences and kind of their inner worlds, that just information that I wouldn't normally hear about, their family life. And it's been really interesting. I've gotten to know them on a different level, and so I'm able to talk with them about just some different types of stuff. And so they've really been engaged. That's been fascinating, and I've really enjoyed being able to connect with each student. And I think that our relationships have grown. Some of the students I've already known previously from earlier classes, and they have just opened up and talked about some deeper information, just shared much more than I had known about them in the past. And of course, we're talking about implications for them as professional social workers. And so it ties back into their ability to, well, how will this impact you as a social worker, and your ability to be a resilient practitioner. So it's just been fascinating. So I think the content of the conversation, relating back to the content of the course, that impacts your ability to engage students. And some of that is just kind of how your course, it's set up based on the content of the course. So that, sometimes it's easier based on what your course, like if you're teaching research, I mean, it's going to be harder because, it's harder to, because students are like, I hate research, so you're going to be working uphill trying to engage them. So more power to you, research teachers. I feel your pain, but yeah. But so, but I just think, thinking about reaching, it's like that Cheers television show. Everyone knows your name when you walk in there. You're sitting up there, and students want to be called by their names. They want to be known.
Yeah.
And if we know them, we know their stories, and we're able to, hey, how are you? How's your dog or your or whatever, I know that you were having trouble with a sick animal or a child or your, parent or, whatever. You know that there's stuff going on in their lives, and you're able to recall that to have that personal touch. I think that really makes a difference. You had your name changed. Did that follow through? Has that been indicated by the records? Just sending you an email to follow up on that. I think those really, it's kind of a simple thing, but it makes a big difference to know, hey, I'm paying attention. I'm following up with you. It's been a couple weeks. Did you ever get that cleared up? And I have this file on my desktop of, a follow up, student issues to follow up on. A week or two might take a while, but follow up eventually to say, I hadn't forgotten about you. Was this ever resolved? And I think they're flattered and amazed that, hey, wow, you remembered that? Yes, I did. It's in my folder. And of course, I'm not going to tell them that, but I think that makes a difference.
It does make a big difference. And when we don't have that face-to-face interaction where you normally I don't say kids, I gotta get out of that, but students come into the classroom and you recognize them and you say those things, and you are able to have a little chit chat and banter and things like that. If you're especially in your asynchronous modules, you don't get that kind of interaction. So you have to figure out ways that you can do that in the asynchronous kind of formats, and just whether it's the personal emails or whether it's the memes, or whether it's just sometimes I have phone calls with students and things like that, or the Zoom calls that are late at night. You got to do what you can do to be able to relate to the student, so that they do feel like there is another human being over there that's telling me these things, and I respect them and they respect me, and I really do want to learn what they have to say. So, yeah.
I would
Well,
add
go ahead.
something that just came to me as you were saying that is, in having that relationship, then we're able to have those difficult conversations that we may also have to have, where we say, I don't think this is a time for you to take this research class. This is going to take a lot more work than you're able to give. Trust me, you need to switch or do something different. And if we have that little bit, that relationship going, that seems better, I think.
Yeah, if you know your students, you're able to make a good judgment like that. If you don't really know the student, you don't know what's going on with them, you wouldn't really have a good opinion about what's best for them. And it's hard to do that in this online format until you do some of these things to kind of connect with them and get more information from them. But I feel like it takes a lot more digging and investigation and kind of therapeutic kind of approaches to get more information out of students in that way. So I appreciate everybody on here. I know most of it was social work, but appreciate Casey on here too, and her perspectives from the OT department. And I think that was everybody too. So thanks for coming to this session. I hope it was somewhat helpful. I wanted to give out, my perspectives, but I also wanted to have a conversation so that we could just kind of converse about what works for us and get everybody to kind of share their own ideas too, and just get you kind of thinking about some of these things as well. And appreciate everybody coming in and sharing your ideas.
Thanks, Angel. It was really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Angel,
Nice
lots to think about.
Very good.
If there's nothing else for the good of the group, I will end the recording and keep the meeting on until you all want to disconnect. And I thank you so much, Angel, for presenting for us today. I've learned some things, and more than that, I learned a disposition I think that you all sort of have that I need to adopt. It's more of a willingness and openness to connect. And you operationalized that very well, and some others gave some great feedback and ideas about it. So I certainly benefited from it, and I certainly thank you. And thank you all for coming today.